I learned incorrectly. So many textbooks say this. I'm going to go to sexual orientation. I spoke to Robert Spitzer, the man who was involved, of course, in helping to change the DSM-3 with the definitions of homosexuality. Here's the thing that I found through my research. Okay, that a lot of people don't know, but after Robert Spitzer in the 1970s, I believe it was 72, there was a congress. They had this very important meeting where psychologists, psychiatrists, advocates were pretty much saying, let's stop calling homosexuality a mental disorder. Because at the time it was, and in certain states you could lose your license, you could be arrested. It was, it was a crime. Robert Spitzer said he applied those two criteria of does it cause significant distress, personal distress, or does it impair your functioning, that was applied to sexual orientation or to homosexuality. So if someone was gay or lesbian, but it didn't affect them, they didn't feel so bad, then it was not considered a disorder. And then they said, but wait a second, they will feel bad. Here's the narrative that we see in textbooks. If they feel bad, it's usually because of society. So let's just take it out completely. So many professors teach the story that sexual orientation in 1973-ish was taken out of the DSM completely. Homosexuality was no longer in the DSM, except up until the DSM-5, there was in the sexual disorders section, sexual disorders not otherwise specified. Number 2, the second point was significant distress over one's sexual orientation. And that still existed up until 2013 when the DSM-5 came out. It was still there. It was called something else, but it was there. Okay, and I've never saw any textbook explain that. They had this different narrative. Like it was like, Psychology 73 took it out. It was all gone. No problem. And that was my reading as a student, as an undergrad, as a grad, and then teaching about it. You were more in the field in that area than I was. So the way I just described it, what is your awareness, your knowledge? Like, what if I got anything wrong? What are your thoughts on that whole process of removing sort of sexual orientation from the DSM or putting into a sexual disorders category and so on?
Yeah, I think you got it exactly correctly. That was a really, really nice summary of the history. But from that, one shouldn't really deduce that there was a single mind working to lesser and lesser ways. It's really just, with each version, there was a compromise between what politically different people thought that they could get away with, what they thought would make the APA look good or bad, and then whatever internal politics. So it just got into, more and more side positions. The most recent change, which you mentioned, has a side effect. The reason that it was there was not to leave some vestige of saying, well, if we wanted to, we still can get away with diagnosing, homosexuality. That was never the intent.
Okay.
The intent was, some 14-year-old kid comes in, trouble adjusting to being with gay, wants a couple of sessions, a hand, coming out. Well, then the shrink could use that to bill for it. Now they can't, so the kid gets no help. Aren't we good? For pushing our political correctness, we found the right place, but that wasn't goddamn good enough. We needed a greater extreme, and we shot ourselves in the foot.
I see.
Of course, as a gay man, I understand that being gay shouldn't be deemed a mental illness, but people have gotten so overly damn focused on the symbolism that they have completely forgotten the reality. Because the activists are perfectly comfortable being out there, they started pushing rules that make sense to somebody who's an activist out there, but not to the people for whom the book is meant to help. Congratulations, us.
Well, thank you, because if I said something like that, then I'm a homophobic.
Right. So what does that say about the rest of the liberal gang? Now it's all of us guilty for not standing up and saying, this doesn't look right to me. And just because it's the fashionable thing amongst the liberals around me, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. That's how and again, I defend pedophilia, to no foreseeable benefit to myself. And everybody else is just kind of glomming on once it's fashionable to go for the T thing. But if we think critically 2 seconds about what we're doing, it's not helping. It's making things worse.